how this movie, Joker was like, it was pretty unnerving. Like it was something else. Like it was. It's like this kind of generation's.
It's a lot like
Taxi Driver.
It's a lot like Taxi Driver.
I mean, it's not really much of a plot.
Mm-mm.
You're following this guy with mental illness, and Jesus, does Joaquin Phoenix just carry the movie?
I mean, the movie was built that way.
No, I mean he's literally in.
Whoever played that role was gonna.
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say they might carry the movie, but
I'm not saying he wasn't fantastic. I'm just
saying I don't see many other people doing what Joaquin was able to do. Because I remember early on, Leonardo was attached to this. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
a few years ago. But man, it was an intense watching this movie.
It was, and it's one of those things that it builds and it builds, and it builds and it builds, and they just keep kicking the crap out of this character.
Yeah.
And every time you're like, this is it. He's gonna snap here. He's gonna snap here.
But then it's just like you said. It's that slow build into. I mean, it's the whole movie's about how, like, society failed him.
Yeah.
In his eyes.
In every aspect of the way.
Yeah.
He was up for adoption.
Yeah.
He got adopted by a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
And then from there, he was put in an abusive home.
Like, he had a shitty life from the moment he was born.
And then from there, he developed the mental illness. And then from there,
it just
snowballs.
Yeah, and because of that, and they did such a good job, in my opinion, of really being able to show that into, like, the whole first 2/3 of this movie. You were really rooting for this guy. You want things to go right for him, and there's times where you think it might be going right for him. It might be going good, and.
It gets to a point, though, it's a little, like, Clockwork Oranges.
I disagree. And by the end, I despised him by the end. I wasn't rooting for him or anything. I thought he was an absolute...
Not even a little bit?
No. I thought he was an absolute monster. Think about what he's doing.
Yeah.
I understand what his point is. But how he's going... I mean, Kyle, think about what... Not even the final... Excluding the final climax.
Okay, stop. Just real quick, take away my comment. Think about a Clockwork Orange, and think about what he did.
You're absolutely right, but you are...
think about what he did.
But at the same time, think about a Clockwork Orange in this way, too. They don't show what he's like after he gets out of the hospital, right?
You get a glimpse.
A small glimpse. There's a solid 30 minutes where it's showing him full on embracing who he is, and that's a fucking wild ride.
Oh, the last
third.
It's the best part of the movie.
It is, and I honestly just first of all,
well, he's the best part of the movie, but
I mean, I can't get him out of. I can't get that character out of my head. And the movie. Put it this way, I've read where. Todd Phillips, first of all, Todd Phillips directed this movie. Todd Phillips directed Old School, The Hangover Trilogy, Starsky and Hutch, Due Date. Like, he did all these comedies, and he fucking destroyed in this movie. There were so many moments where
it was very well directed.
You were like claustrophobic, and it was so. He did such a great job of setting up like 1970s. It was Gotham, but it was like 1970s New York. It was gritty and dark, but Todd Phillips, he absolutely crushed it out of the park on this one, and he did an absolute amazing job of
atmosphere.
Well, not just atmosphere, at developing this character, and
it's not just the character; it's the world. What's going on in the background of it? Like, all of it was well done.
No, and he co-wrote it, but this is what I was about to bring up. Is this feels like an idea that he had for a while about a character like this. and then saw an opportunity to kind of tie it into DC.
For everybody that's going to go into this thinking they're going to see a DC universe, this is not.
There's only one part that's DC universe.
Well, not even that. I mean, this movie, outside of having seeing the Wayne family, if you took the Wayne family out of this,
no, you're absolutely right.
This has nothing really to do.
Yeah, but there's some elements to it that they were able to tie it in pretty well, which does make you question whether or not this will be tied into the new Batman series. I personally don't think so. Mainly because I'm sure after people see this movie, they'll think we need to see Joaquin as Joker again. And he doesn't strike me as the type of guy that wants...
I don't think so. It would take it'd be like 25 years in the future.
They still could do like an old Joker. I'm sure they could write it that way. I doubt that they'll do it because Joaquin's not going to want to do it.
Anyway, I mean, that's beside the point. I don't think that's ever going to be a question on whether or not he's coming back.
I'm just saying there are people that have talked about it, and I'm in agreement with you. I don't think it'll ever even be a thing.
But I do think that the Joker, there will be a Joker in the upcoming thing, and I don't think it's going to be. I think he's just started the revolution.
Yeah,
he put the idea in somebody else's head to carry on that.
It was basically the whole town. The whole city of Gotham was tired of being... You realize the majority of the town is in the same position that he is. Mm-hmm. That they feel like they have been let down by society, and that there's an overwhelming amount of people that are just fucking tired of the uppity up and rich individuals of Gotham. And... You're right. He started a revolution by...
He didn't purposefully start the revolution.
That's when you really think about it, it's crazy.
But he
embraced
it once it started to happen because that's all he had.
Mm-hmm. Well, he had been kicked down his whole life, and the first time he felt any sort of like recognition was when he that scene on the subway.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, not crazy. It's so interesting to see how his acts of violence truly did escalate. And that's also kind of why it's unnerving, is that this movie, you have to assume that's how people that commit acts of violence that way, that's how it happens. It escalates and escalates and escalates.
But you could also, in the same breath, you could make the argument, is he a vigilante?
No. Are you talking about that first instance?
I'm talking about all of it. He killed people which he felt deserved to die.
Yeah, but think about the last two that died. Did they deserve to die at all? Maybe the last one. I get that. He had a reason for it. What about the guy in his apartment?
He's the one that gave him the gun and then blamed him.
I took that was a delusion. Because even the guy acts surprised. When he blamed me, he goes, "You gave me the gun." He's like, "Well, hold on."
Well, no, the cops showed up and said they interviewed him.
They said you brought a gun to work.
Yes, and then they said it was cooperated by the guy. Said he had asked him for a gun.
Asked him for a gun, okay. He made it. I took it as the guy literally was denying that it wasn't. He didn't give him a gun. That's how I looked at it. I looked at it like he was having a delusion that he was given a gun.
I think you looked a lot further into the delusion piece than I did. My thing is
he's having delusions constantly.
Yes, but they show you at the end when he breaks, they show you what was a delusion and what wasn't a delusion.
Just in that one instance, in that one very specific storyline.
I took it that was his delusion. The rest of it was
completely real.
Yeah.
See,
then you start going in. If you start thinking everything's a delusion, then you can just say half this fucking movie didn't make sense.
That's how I kind of not that it didn't make sense, but you're so focused on a guy who has mental illness. He's delusional. He's psychotic. He has he has depression.
Yeah, so I get it, but at the end was supposed to be like clarity.
But it's because he finally embraced who he was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
But
why
I'm
I
just
find.
saying,
That's why I find
if
this
you're
movie.
gonna go, if you're gonna go to the thing that it was like 90% of what happened beforehand was a delusion, and he was just making stuff up, this movie's absolutely terrible.
I'm not saying he made everything up. In the one instance that you brought up was in the very beginning, Glenn Fleischer, he was the villain in the first season of True Detective, hands him a gun, right? Hands him a gun in a bag. For the rest of the movie, it seemed like he had no idea about giving him a gun. When they mentioned, remember he brought the gun into the children's hospital? He brings the gun into the children's hospital, and they asked him, like, did you know where he got a gun? And the guy was like, he brought a gun to work the other day. He didn't mention anything about, I gave him a gun.
But that's why he killed him. Because he did give him the gun.
I took it
as he was holding that against him. Like, he didn't have he thought this guy was his friend, and he didn't have his back.
But that's where I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, is because was he actually having a delusion at that point? Was he thinking that this guy backstabbed him whenever
if you're going to do that to the whole movie, then
it's not the whole fucking movie, Kyle. It's that one instance.
But I'm saying, if you're going to do it there, you can do it in other parts of the movie.
Okay, whatever. It's besides the fucking point.
Was his mom even there? Was his mom real?
What are you fucking talking about? I gave one example where someone is going against what he is saying, where there's a reason for a delusion. Any other part there's not, except for the part with Zazie Beetz.
I mean,
his mom was clearly there. His mom went to the hospital. The cops were there. The cops took her to the hospital.
Were the cops real?
What the fuck are you talking about, Kyle?
I'm just saying, if you're going to start assuming certain things happened,
one instance of delusion happened.
And I'm saying, if I had one other instance,
I don't understand why you have to jump to, half the fucking movie's made up, when I'm pointing out one instance that totally makes sense. I don't understand why you have to bring up that, actually the whole fucking movie's a delusion, this movie's terrible. I make one instance where it actually makes sense, and there's a point to it.
I'm not saying all of it. I'm just saying, if you're going to pick one instance. You keep saying one instance, and I'm saying that you could pick one instance in this whole movie.
The rest of the movie has been corroborated by other people in the movie. The one time I'm talking about is a specific instance where the other person is denying giving him a gun.
I know, but I'm saying,
what other part is there somewhere else?
But my point is, the killings he felt like he had motive for all of them.
Yeah, I understand that. It's because I think he's living in that delusion that guy gave him a gun.
I don't know. I just did not like
the Murray Franklin thing. I totally understand, because he looked at it as like, this guy's making fun of me completely.
Yeah. But my point is, when he gained that moment of clarity, I took it as all of a sudden everything kind of snapped, and he saw what was a delusion and what wasn't a delusion, including the Murray Frank. Like, he was able to cut through the bullshit at that point. There was no more delusions anymore.
Yeah, no, okay, fine.
And then, if that's the case, then, because he still clearly held the grudge because where else was he going to get a gun?
I don't know, it's the fucking 70s in New York. Or Gotham, you can get a gun.
Yeah, but just how that went down, I never at any point took that as, at no point did I take it as a delusion.
See, I thought it was up for debate. That's how I looked at it. I looked at it like he in his mind truly thought that this guy gave him a gun and then denied it, where at the same time, he could have gotten a gun.
I mean, but they never gave you any evidence
they didn't...
of him finding the gun, of him...
That's true. Fine. That's true.
Because he would have pulled the gun out of thin air in the corner of this room, if that's the case.
It was in a bag. I mean, he could have brought the bag with him. He came to work. It's not like it... I mean, it's besides the fucking point. It really doesn't matter. But you're right. You brought up a good point where it's like, there's a certain point in this movie where he does start cutting through all the bullshit, and he basically decides to exact revenge on people who have wronged him. At no point am I going to say he's a vigilante.
No, but that's my point. In his mind...
In his mind, he's a vigilante, but that's what makes him such an interesting character.
Yeah, I know. That's all I was trying to bring up.
Well,
and we went on this tangent.
I still don't... I thought it was a valid thing to talk about. Because, I mean, he's clearly living in a delusion the majority of this movie. He thinks he's an hilarious stand-up comedian. And he's laughing at things that are not funny. Now, that was actually a really sad part of this movie.
I mean, that's... none of that was delusionalized, though, you know what I mean? Like...
But
it cuts away.
But he had people... You heard people laughing. Do you remember that at the end of his set, he says something and everyone's really starting to laugh? It's because in his mind, he's thinking he's killing at this set.
Yeah, but I mean, handing somebody a gun. But that's my point. See, then there's a second piece of delusion. There's other ones. There's a point in this, and that's the reason I said I woke up this morning. Again, we have strong opinions about this movie, but this is the reason I woke up this morning. Remember how you were like, I'm done. And that's how I felt last night. After watching it, we were like,
I'm done in the sense, I don't know when the next time I'm going to see this movie. Like it's draining.
Yeah, you watch it and you're like, oh God. Like, but he's amazing. But I woke up this morning going, I want to see that again. Because there are several points where I'm like, like you said, I started to think, there's a point where he's talking to his mom, or something happens with his mom, and I remember thinking, I don't think his mom's there. But then I said to myself, but that's before like we started talking about this, and then I started going, well, if you're going to start doing that to this movie, if you're going to start sitting there and going, I don't know if that happened, it detracts from the whole movie.
See, I never took it as like his mom was always there. His mom was...
No, I don't mean that. I just mean there was a specific scene where he was having a conversation with his mom, and I had never had a moment like that. Yeah, and there's a couple points in this movie where I started to feel like the same way you felt
about the gun.
I started to feel that at certain points in this movie with different conversations and different scenes, and you go, well, is that real? Is that happening? But that's my point, is if you start doing that to the whole movie, I have to take it as everything was
that
real,
we saw that
wasn't immediately given, like, okay, that was a delusion. Like,
there's a specific storyline with Zazie Beetz that they reveal, but they give a reveal that it wasn't. Now, honestly, I wish they went about that differently. I liked how when he entered her apartment and she was surprised and was like, "Your name's Arthur, right?" Like she was. Yeah. I thought that was enough to give the viewer like she was never hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been good. I thought that would have been a good enough reveal to show that his relationship with her was a delusion. Mm-hmm. Except for maybe that first instance in the elevator where she was like, which I think that was real.
Yeah.
But I guess that makes a good point, because if they were going to go out of their way to show that relationship was a delusion, they would go out of their way to show other things were a delusion as well. Yeah. And I guess
much like A Beautiful Mind, where you start to, when the reveal is that he's got his different people, you realize, oh, these are the aspects that aren't real.
You're right.
You're going to go into because
I just thought that
I agree with you that it feels like that could be a delusion. But my argument to it is
that you can pick apart the rest of the movie. I totally understand. I just felt like in that particular instance, do you understand my argument?
No, I understand.
Because the guy literally...
And that's the reason I want to rewatch this movie, though, because I remember in the theater it almost leaned you.
Well, see, now I kind of want to watch it, too, because I'm like, I swear, like, the guy clearly acted surprised where he was like, he had a gun.
But that's my point. If we start rewatching this again and you realize half this movie's a delusion, and then you're going, what the hell was this?
It was a character study of a mentally insane person.
I mean,
yeah, again, it goes back to like
what makes this movie for me is the final act, because it gives you that feeling like you're in this by no means is tied to Nolan's Batman. So I'm not
right.
This by no means, it's a completely separate.
You know what's
gives that, but it's that eerie, like he's not dumb. and by the time he snaps, he's figured it out.
You know what's strange is that they play him up to kind of be dumb a little bit. Like, you see how he writes, and he's almost childish, and you're right, by the end, he seems to have like an idea of how the world really works in his mind, and because of that, he seems intelligent almost.
And then he's like being worshipped by Gotham.
That, honestly, that whole scene at the end is, I think that would be iconic, where
you watch it and
where
you're
he
like,
has
the Joker.
Well, no, I'm not like that. When he's sitting there and he gets on top of the cop car and he has blood because he does like that. I think that would be like an iconic scene because he puts a smile on his face. I mean, it's a movie. It's an experience. I will say that. Like, it's something you're watching, and it's so unnerving because you really get to know this person with many mental illnesses.
Well, you know what's interesting is I had somebody ask me today, should I see it? And I know that they're just a casual moviegoer.
I've said, same conversation.
And I was like, was it good? Yes. Was the acting good? Yes. Would I recommend it to you? If you're a casual moviegoer.
You know what's funny? Because I don't want to recommend it to someone and they'd be like, what the fuck did you make me watch?
Yeah. I mean, because it's 2 hours and there's parts where it feels long.
We left the theater. I remember thinking, like, that movie felt like 2.5 hours at least. Yeah. And it's 2.
Yeah.
And it's because
it feels close to 3.
It's because every scene and
it's tough to watch.
It's tough to watch, and it goes to
it
does go to
the
Joaquin,
world beat down, like literally kick the crap out of it.
And it goes into Joaquin Phoenix's performance of, like, you don't know what he's gonna do next.
No, around every turn.
At any point you're like worried when something really bad's gonna happen, and when violence starts, it's pretty like if you thought the Nolan Batmans were like real and gritty, this is real. This shit is gritty.
No, it's got a real feel. It's got a Scorsese feel.
No, it felt like Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly how it felt. But it's not like an enjoyable movie because there's not much of a plot to it. Mm-hmm. It's not like wow, I can't wait to go buy that on DVD and just watch it over and over and over. It's like, for me personally, it's a movie that I'll watch and I'm gonna let that. I'm still like, I'm gonna let that rest.
No, I woke up this morning and I had a completely after walking out of it last night. I remember I said to you, I thought it was okay, but Joaquin crushes.
I don't know who's gonna beat him for an Oscar. Like I genuinely do not know.
That being said, I woke up this morning and it's like the day's gone on. I'm going, is it my personal favorite movie of the year? Maybe not, but is it the best thing we've seen all year? Absolutely.
Really? Mm-hmm. You think it's the best movie of the year so far?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I don't. I still have.
Again, that's just the same thing. I think.
But
to me, Toy Story and Once Upon a Time.
What would you? Okay, so this
in Hollywood.
What would you give this movie then? Would you give it an A?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'd have to give this one. I'd have to give it an A minus. I mean, there are parts that feel very long, and because it's not as enjoyable as I know it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be an enjoyable.
And that's what I had to get. That's what I had to get over. It's like I woke up this morning. And I was like, look, the parts that weren't enjoyable.
But the movie is.
It's not because it's bad. It's purposefully they're making you watch. What makes, honestly, it's the best way to describe, like, I heard somebody describe, like, what makes the second Spider-Man so good.
Okay.
Well, no, this just goes back. What makes the second Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, what makes it so good is the world's kicking the crap out of him at every turn. His life is difficult no matter what, and you're just like, You want everything. You want him to succeed. Where in this, you want him to succeed, but you know he's not. And it's just a sad spiral.
But does he?
And that's what makes it great.
But
he succeeds in what he.
But you don't, as a normal person, you also don't want him to, because unlike Spider-Man's saving people.
Yeah. But my point is Spider-Man 2 is like that. There's parts of Spider-Man 2 that are tough to watch because you're just like, oh god, like it's one. Right, at no point does he succeed in that movie until the very end. I mean, they just keep kicking the crap out of him.
Okay.
And I don't mean just physically. I mean one thing after another. Like
we're talking about Spider-Man 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
And then, but that's my point. That's how this was. It's one thing after another, and then by the end, it's even though it's so horrible, it feels like a relief.
Yeah, I'll say that. Like it's that strange. I don't know, man. He's a fucking monster. But
it feels, in terms of the tension that's built in the movie, all of a sudden it's all relieved because you finally he's finally who he's meant to be, which is the Joker.
Which I thought that the actual end scene itself was like not when he's out in the streets. Mm-hmm. The actual end scene itself was something that also like Jesus. Mm-hmm. Man, no, this was a really, really well done movie. It honestly, it is like Scorsese's earlier stuff, like King of Comedy or Taxi Driver. Like it's something else, and Todd Phillips did an amazing job in my opinion, and Joaquin. And I don't see anyone else beating Joaquin for Best Actor this year. Like it's like a tour de force performance. He doesn't. Every frame of this movie has him in it.
Yeah. And
he's carrying the movie, and it's an impressive.
I mean, he's
impressive movie.
Yeah, he is so tough to watch. But
he's like, not only like the things that he's doing are tough.
Yeah.
He lost so much weight, and the way he's looking, he looks like someone that's been in prison in Moscow for like dozens of years.
Well, he looks like an escaped.
No, I mean he looks like someone
out of the Woody bin. Like he's just...
he acts that way, and there's also so many like just the thing that he has, his condition of laughing uncontrollably. Mm-hmm. Is like when you see that in the preview, you're like, he's just laughing, and then when you watch the movie and realize like how he's laughing, and then he knows he doesn't want to laugh, but that also kind of plays into, by the end, he was laughing with no. At the beginning of the movie, if he was laughing in a position that he didn't want to, he would start trying to choke himself and try not have any noise come out, and that was difficult to watch. But by the end, he didn't care.
But also, I mean, it kind of started to get better.
That's true. He seemed to be laughing at times he only wanted to be laughing at.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
This movie, this is actually...
And he started to get better because, I mean, without the drugs and everything, he finally was able to be who he truly was, which was he's maniac.
Yeah. But he's just full on embraced it.
Yeah.
One last thing. Do you think this has not quite anything to do with the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's character himself? Do you think the casting of the little person was just so Todd Phillips could have the best dark humor joke of all time?
Which is not being able to open the door.
You have to, like, the more I thought about that scene, that's like, that is so fucked up, but how funny is that? Where, I mean, they're in a room, and Joaquin has just brutally killed this guy. And the little person is still alive, and he's freaking out. Mm-hmm. And Joaquin's like, you can go. He was like, you were always nice to me, you can go. And the little person can't reach the door. Or he can't reach the lock.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. Like, that was the scene where I was like, I like chuckled, but it wasn't until I got home.
The whole audience laughed during the end of that scene.
I know. There are, and that's, Todd Phillips does a great job of like.
That's the only laughter in that movie, though.
No, there was. What about when he's talking to the cops outside the hospital? And he's sitting there, and he says some shit that is pretty, not cold-blooded, but like kind of badass, and he's like getting away from the cops, and he seems like a normal person.
Yeah. And then
he immediately runs into the door. Like, it just showed, like, no matter what, he couldn't, even, like, in that moment, he did kind of win that moment for him. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
He hit his head because he was trying to go in an exit door. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I do really like this movie because of what we're doing right here. Like I could talk about this movie forever. There's so much that you can dissect and kind of pick apart or not pick apart, and just like the argument we just had, like there are things that people are like, no, that didn't happen, and then someone else will look at it completely differently.
Yeah. And my deal is like with our argument. Yes, like you're 100% right. It feels weird. Like it could happen. But my argument
you
is...
could do it with the whole rest of the movie as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, that's kind of the beauty of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I yes and no, because I feel like for it to be a comprehensive, cohesive piece, it's best just to take it for what it is. Okay. And can you talk about it? Like, I'm not going to start to pick it apart until like my third, fourth, fifth view.
And that's fair.
But for doing this review and for talking about it, I feel like, I'm taking it at face value at this point. I haven't read anything about it. I haven't watched any other reviews. All I know about this movie is what I saw last night.
Okay. Well, honestly, I could keep going, but we do probably need to wrap this up. You give it an A. You said you think it might be the best movie of the year. Mm-hmm. It's up there.
Is it my personal favorite?
No.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
But I do. It's one.
And Toy Story 4 for me. I actually really liked Us, and we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. We'll have a top 10 a year. But this movie, I do agree. It is one of the better made movies of the year for sure.
Oh, it might be the best.
But it's just not quite enjoyable.
No.
And you feel like kind of shitty walking out. You feel gross almost. Yeah. But it's that in itself is impressive of what they were able to do. So, but that is our take on Todd Phillips' Joker. Go see. We saw it in IMAX, but like, go see it because it is something worth talking about.
It's not a movie about the Joker.
It's about a man with mental illness.
Yeah,
it's not a Batman movie.
It's not a superhero movie. I don't think at any point there might be one scene of this that's referenced in a future movie.
Maybe, and also,
it's a pretty obvious scene that's going to be that would be referenced in a super movie that doesn't have really anything to do with the rest of the movie.
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah,
that might literally be the one scene like where he's not.
Yeah,
right. But also, just another disclaimer: don't fucking take your kids to this either. Like, don't be like, oh, this is like kind of it's a Batman thing. Like, don't.
No.
Like,
it's tough to watch. First of all, your kid's not going to enjoy it.
No.
And then it's brutal.
Yeah, it's a dark and gritty movie that I highly recommend. All right, well, we'll check you next time with Our Take.